What if I told you that one piece of land, smaller than New Jersey, carries more history, trauma, faith, and political tension than almost anywhere else on Earth? What if the key to understanding today's headlines lies not in today's tensions, but in events thousands of years old?
And what if this conflict isn't simply about religion, but about two national movements born in the 19th century, claiming the same homeland? This is the story of Israel, and to understand it, we have to go back, far back. The land between the Mediterranean Sea and the Jordan River has been sacred to Jews for over 3,000 years. Ancient Hebrew kingdoms emerged here around the first millennium CE. Jerusalem became the spiritual center of Jewish life. After Roman forces destroyed the Second Temple in 70 CE and crushed a later Jewish revolt, many Jews were dispersed across the Roman Empire. Over centuries, Jewish communities spread across Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. But Jewish presence in the land never disappeared entirely. Small communities remained. For centuries, the region, later known as Palestine, was ruled by empires: Byzantine, Islamic caliphates, Crusaders, and from the 16th century until World War I, the Ottoman Empire. Muslims, Christians, and Jews lived there, sometimes peacefully, sometimes not, but largely as local communities within larger imperial systems. Everything changed in the 19th century. Across Europe, nationalism was rising. At the same time, anti-Semitism intensified. Pogroms in Eastern Europe and discrimination in Western Europe led some Jewish thinkers to argue that Jews were not just a religious group, but a nation without a state. One of them was Theodor Herzl. In 1896, he argued that the solution to European anti-Semitism was a Jewish state. The movement became known as Zionism.
At Basel, I founded the Jewish state. If not in 5 years, then certainly in 50. Everyone will see it.
At the time, Palestine was overwhelmingly Arab, mostly Muslim with Christian minorities, and part of the Ottoman Empire. Early Jewish immigrants began arriving in waves, buying land and establishing agricultural communities. For many Jews, this was a return to their ancestral homeland. For many local Arabs, it looked like foreign settlement backed by European powers. Then came World War I. The Ottoman Empire collapsed. Britain took control of Palestine. In 1917, the British government issued the Balfour Declaration, supporting the establishment of a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine, while also promising not to harm the rights of existing non-Jewish communities. At the same time, Britain had made promises of independence to Arab leaders. These overlapping commitments planted seeds of future conflict. During the British Mandate period, Jewish immigration increased, especially after the Nazis came to power in Germany in 1933. Tensions exploded. Arab revolts broke out in the late 1930s. Britain tried to limit immigration, but struggled to control the violence. Then came the Holocaust. 6 million Jews were murdered by Nazi Germany. Survivors languished in displaced persons camps across Europe. For many, the urgency of a Jewish state became undeniable. In 1947, the United Nations proposed dividing Palestine into 2 states, one Jewish, one Arab, with Jerusalem under international control. Jewish leaders accepted the plan, though reluctantly in some cases. Arab leaders rejected it, arguing it unfairly allocated land and violated the rights of the Arab majority. When Israel declared independence on May 14, 1948,
זוהי זכותו הטבעית של העם היהודי להיות ככל עם ועם עומד ברשות עצמו במדינתו הריבונית.
Neighboring Arab states invaded. The war ended in 1949, with Israel controlling more territory than the UN plan had granted. For Israelis, this was the War of Independence, survival against overwhelming odds. For Palestinians, it was the Nakba, the catastrophe. Around 700,000 Palestinians fled or were expelled. Most were never allowed to return. At the same time, hundreds of thousands of Jews from Arab countries left or were expelled over the following years, many resettling in Israel. The conflict hardened. In 1967, after rising tensions, Israel launched a preemptive strike against Egypt, Syria, and Jordan. In 6 days, Israel captured the West Bank, East Jerusalem, Gaza, the Sinai Peninsula, and the Golan Heights. Sinai was later returned to Egypt, but the West Bank and Gaza remained under Israeli control. This marked a turning point. Israel now governed millions of Palestinians. Jewish settlements began expanding in the occupied territories, seen by many Israelis as security buffers or historical claims, and by Palestinians and much of the international community as illegal under international law. In 1964, the Palestine Liberation Organization, or PLO, was formed, later led by Yasser Arafat. Some factions used armed struggle and attacks against Israeli targets, including the 1972 Munich Olympics massacre.
This day in 1972, the Munich Olympics took a tragic turn. Palestinian gunmen attacked the Israeli team, taking them hostage. 11 people were killed after a botched rescue operation. The attack caused a deep rift between Germany and Israel.
Israel responded with military operations and targeted killings. In 1987, frustration in the occupied territories erupted into the First Intifada, a largely grassroots uprising of protests and clashes. In 1993, something remarkable happened. Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin and Yasser Arafat shook hands at the White House. The Oslo Accords aimed to create a path toward a two-state solution. The West Bank was divided into areas A, B, and C, with varying levels of Palestinian and Israeli control. Hope briefly surged, but extremists on both sides undermined the process. In 1995, Rabin was assassinated by an Israeli extremist opposed to territorial compromise. Suicide bombings by Palestinian militants deepened Israeli fears. Settlement expansion continued. In 2000, the Second Intifada erupted, far more violent than the first. In 2005, Israel unilaterally withdrew from Gaza. 2 years later, Hamas, an Islamist movement founded during the First Intifada, took control of Gaza after winning elections and clashing with the rival Fatah movement. Israel and Egypt imposed a blockade on Gaza, citing security concerns. Hamas and Israel fought multiple wars over the next decade. Rockets from Gaza targeted Israeli towns. Israeli airstrikes hit Gaza. Civilians suffered on both sides. Inside Israel, politics grew increasingly polarized. Benjamin Netanyahu, a dominant figure for much of the past 15 years, aligned with right-wing and religious parties skeptical of Palestinian statehood. In 2023, controversial judicial reform proposals triggered massive protests, exposing deep internal divisions. Meanwhile, Palestinians in the West Bank live under a complex system of Palestinian Authority administration in some areas and Israeli military control in others. Settlement expansion continues. Violence between settlers and Palestinians periodically erupts. Arab citizens of Israel, about 20% of the population, hold Israeli citizenship but often report discrimination and inequality, while also participating in Israeli political life. And then came October 7th, 2023. Hamas launched a massive, coordinated attack on southern Israel, killing around 1,200 people and taking hostages. It was the deadliest day in Israel's history. Israel responded with a large-scale military operation in Gaza. The war caused immense destruction and civilian casualties. The humanitarian crisis deepened. Regional tensions escalated. The conflict once again captured global attention and reignited fierce debates worldwide. So why is this conflict so hard to resolve? Because it is not just territorial. It is historical. It is emotional. It is existential for both peoples. For many Israelis, the state is the guarantee that Jews will never again be defenseless. For many Palestinians, statehood is the guarantee that they will not remain stateless in their own homeland. Jerusalem, sacred to Jews, Muslims, and Christians, symbolizes the heart of the struggle. Every stone carries meaning. Every compromise feels like surrender. Two peoples, two narratives, one land. The question that remains is not who has suffered more. History shows suffering on both sides. The real question is whether two national movements, born in the same century, can still find a way to share a land they both call home. History explains how we got here. It does not yet tell us where this story will end. And that ending, if there is one, is still being written.